Today we live and work in a world of bots. Bots for good and bots for bad. Bots can answer questions for us, they can help us shop, they can analyze our data. But the rise of AI-powered bot and API attacks are real threats to mobile businesses and users alike. And these bot attacks are growing at an astronomical rate. So let's unpack what's really going on today with a twist. So I'm pleased that we have two Appdome pros to help us break this down, and we're going to switch this up a little bit. So today we have Tom, usually our business guy, our CEO, and he's going to take the technical point of view on our bot conversation. And we have Gil, our field CTO. He's going to put the business hat on for our conversation. So let's get into it. So Gil, why mobile bot defense and why now?
So I would say that the world is moving to a mobile place. Like everybody is using mobile. We're going mobile first. Everybody, like in a lot of countries in the world, they don't have laptops. They only have mobiles, and that's where the money is. That's where the business is. That's where the attack vectors are. And with AI moving there, like any attack can be numerously larger, easier to extract out, and that's the time. I mean, now's the time where you have to invest in your mobile protection and make sure that you're defended on that side. That'd be on my part.
So Tom, what's your view?
Yeah, I think and Gil will correct me on this if I get it wrong, but I think when you look at kind of what's out there currently, WAF vendors are the primary providers of bot defense, and the only way that they can reach mobile is to provide SDKs, which can have limitations. Maybe they don't work with the language of the application or the network stack in the application. So there can be sort of incompatibilities between the anti-bot SDK and the application. But also the methods that are in those SDKs are really built for web environments. So they use techniques and methods that are antithetical and even vulnerable inside of a mobile context. I'm talking particularly about things like cookies, and JWT tokens, and things like that. And the third thing I'd say is that they just don't invest it. They don't evaluate enough of the risk that's present on mobile. So if you're asking me why mobile bot, why now? I'd say the solutions that are there are really not built for mobile, and the world needs a mobile solution.
That's really interesting as we think about how the attack vector has grown. Some defenses are out there, but the defenses aren't sufficient effectively. But let's take a quick second. So there are some advantages to current anti-bot technology. So, Gil, get us started with, what some of those are that from the business perspective, we want to recognize are important in investing in anti-bot technology.
Yeah, so anti-bot is a lot about protecting your backend and protecting your business values of where you are basically in your infrastructure. And I think that you want to make sure that you're protected against all attack vectors. So it doesn't matter where it's coming from, if it's coming from the mobile app, if it's coming from the web, if it's coming from scripts trying to impersonate the mobile or the web, then you have to make sure that you're covered on all fronts. And it all comes down into how much are you going to spend if you're going to be attacked? How much are you going to spend if there is a breach? And that's what you have to mitigate against.
Tom, your thoughts on advantages?
Yeah, advantage-wise, I think, unfortunately, technically, there's not very many advantages to the current way that things are done. But I do think that you have to have a unified bot defense strategy. Whether, as Gil's talking about, most businesses have a digital storefront and a mobile storefront. And so being able to complement or have solutions purpose-built for both environments, I think is advantageous because cost containment, carrying traffic, bad traffic is not a good thing. But so you need to be able to have solutions that are purpose-built for both environments, web and mobile, to keep your critical APIs and infrastructure safe from attacks. So I think bot defense gives you that ability to do that. That would be the main advantage I would see.
Yeah, and so you touched on these, Tom, a little bit. There were some real challenges with current mobile bot defense-oriented solutions from some of the traditional legacy vendors. Walk us through some of those technical disadvantages and how you can overcome those hurdles.
Yeah, the main one is sort of time to market and engineering overhead that's required to implement the current, SDK based, bot defense solutions, and the value that you get for from an engineering perspective for taking on that work. Um, Looking at a number of bot defense SDKs out there, we can tell that, the vast majority of them use, cookies or JWT tokens that are sent in clear text and are stored in the application in clear text as well, which opens up the entire system to replay attacks and, reuse and things of that nature. But also, I think, from a risk perspective, say all bot defense SDKs really only evaluate 2 to 3 risk vectors. Usually jailbreak and root, usually emulators, things of that nature. Common things that a RASP solution might detect. But the reality of bot defense or bot attacks is that there's any number of technical methods that can be used that go well beyond that. So the benefit that you get from doing all the work and overcoming all the compatibility challenges and so forth is just not there. That's kind of for me kind of the big kind of disadvantage. So the reality is most mobile attack vectors just are left unprotected to these kinds of credential stuffing and ATO attacks and things of that nature.
Yeah, I would add to your point that I think it's important part is that by adding an SDK by default, you're not tamper-proofing it. You're not making sure that the SDK cannot be extracted from the app and then used in your own app, in your own weaponized option. If you're just adding an SDK and an attacker can just plug it out and put it in somewhere else, that's it. You got nothing. So like it's the basic building blocks that if you don't have them, you're screwed. I mean, that's something that I think is important to add as well.
Yeah, I definitely think I think one of the dependencies that WAF SDK vendors kind of don't miss in the mobile development context is the security of the implementation is not something that's present in the SDK. As Gil points out,
Yep.
you put it in the application, an attacker can take it out and use it in their own application to basically do a credential stuffing attack or disable it in the target application or spoof the signal. One of the really interesting things is that some SDKs rely on a call out to a server. And we know instances where the attacker can just spoof the return signal from the server to the SDK to say, nope, everything's fine, keep doing what you're doing. So we definitely know that these systems out there that rely on callouts to servers and SDK-based implementations do not protect themselves. Some very, very large vendors like store their entire configuration in public areas inside the application without any defense involved. So this is kind of some of the major disadvantages. They're just not built for the mobile environment.
And
So,
it's sad, like from my perspective, like I'm looking at it and I was like, God, this is so easy, as an attacker, as a red team. I mean, when you're in research, then you're always thinking both hats. Like, what would I be doing if I would be attacking this? What do I be doing to be defending it? And you play it against each other. So when you're looking at these things, you're like, oh my God, this is so easy,
Yeah.
and it's a shame.
So when we look at the market, so we've just talked about bot attacks are on the rise. We talked about traditional methods really are failing. There's challenges from an SDK perspective. There's challenges with WAF compatibility perspective. There's challenges with threat defense effectively. So what are some recent updates? Tom, tell us about recent updates from Appdome when it comes to mobile bot and bot defense.
Yeah, well, one of the other things that we're trying to solve, and I'll wade into Gil's world a little bit, and we'll wade into the business side. One of the big things that we're trying to solve um, is the attachment of the SDK based approach to a specific vendor. So if you look at the bot defense solutions out there today, they're all tied to a specific WAF vendor. So if you're going to use X vendors SDK, then you got to use X vendors WAF. But the reality is most networks have multiple WAF vendors in their environment and can't rip and replace all their WAFs just to get bot defense in place. So what we did, this is about 8 months ago, 9 months ago, is we came out with kind of a universal adapter, a bot defense product that plugged into all web application firewalls. And the goal around that was to eliminate the need to rip and replace web application firewalls, to use the existing WAF infrastructure to extend the life of those WAFs and really provide bot defense that's tailor fit for the mobile environment. Again, using any industry standard WAF kind of on the back end. So that was kind of the big way that we stepped into this market. And then I'll let Gil talk about the more recent additions that we made to kind of how you can configure your bot defense profile. So Gil?
Yeah, so the one thing that we've been doing lately is that Appdome has been here like 9, 10 years on the client side, on the fraud and on the front end side of the mobile app. We've been doing that, and now we're taking all these technologies that we've built and we're putting it into our mobile bot solution. So that basically all of our controls, 200 and so controls, 400 controls, you can take and add them into your mobile bot into your mobile bot solution as session headers. And then on the WAF, you can have each and every of the fraud signals and be able to basically write rules on those. It's a huge advantage, like for the network guys that were just mostly like they had 2-3 signals, and now that's a huge amount of change for them. And I think it's a huge on the business side, because then you can actually go and say, hey, maybe I'm not under attack now. Maybe this is not a brute force now, but I can see somebody that is using deepfake who's trying to log into the app. I can see somebody that has Magist that is trying to log into the app. I can see somebody who's trying to make any memory attacks. And he's not necessarily doing right now a credential stuffing attack, but he might be setting himself up in the future for something like that. So it's just a lot more data to consume, and then you can mix and choose and basically enforce and not enforce according to what's happening now and what the attack on the rise.
Yeah.
So I think it's a huge business impact.
I agree with what Gil's saying, and what I would add to that is keep in mind we also stop brute force attacks. So today with what we do is we have sort of 3 layers of defense. So the first layer is we can add rate limiting on the client side, meaning in the application. This is going to block most kind of weaponized and zombie class attacks. And then we can fingerprint the application with a client-side certificate that's secure at rest and in transit. That certificate is passed in the TLS handshake to authenticate the legitimate app. That's going to wipe out your bot farms and your scripts and your brute force attack. And then what Gil's talking about is the ability to go really, really deep into the session risk for any connection request on any API, critical API on your back end. So whether it's sign up or login or payment or whatever, you can actually get a 360-degree view of all kinds of risk associated with that. So yes, you can know, is there a deepfake attack going on while the user is logging in? Is there malware or spyware involved when the user is doing a payment or a checkout function? Is there a keylogger involved when the user is doing a password reset or something like that? So you can get very hyper specific, and you can tailor your profile for each API endpoint that you need to protect. So you can have different evaluations per endpoint, per API that you want to defend against, and this gives you so much more granular control at the network level than you've ever had before using anything else. Before it was just block or allow. Now you can expect 400 different attack vectors at every given API and tailor make that defense model, that defense profile per API. It's crazy.
So it sounds like it's very broad and applicable coverage to almost all major industries, right? So from a fraud perspective, from account takeover and deep fakes, from a know your customer perspective, right, in the financial industry as well. So Gil, get us started on, what are some lessons from the journey now of us working with customers in the bot space and where we've evolved the platform?
So I would say that what customers really like is the ability to correlate what's happening in the app and what's happening in different parts, and in their SIM, correlate it together to what they're seeing on the mobile device, and basically see things, how they match together, and how attacks and scams play out on a global scale. So we've seen them taking advantage of that. And I think the interesting part is that as we're rolling it on, we're seeing the deployment time and the way to adoption time go down. So like basically with Appdome, our medium time to deploy a mobile bot solution end to end is, I think, I don't know, less than 2 months. And that's like crazy. And you have to change your WAF and you have to make sure that you do all of that. So including all the approvals. I mean, it's just groundbreaking, the ability to just deploy protections on your network, on your mobile, like without the ability to spend a lot of resources, because Appdome is providing a lot of the technical resources, and AI basically is providing the resources because that's what's building the protections inside. So I think as you look at it as a cost perspective, just like the cost goes down a lot because you're spending much more of your own technical resources to gather this data and to enforce.
Well, and not to add to the business side, but you also save a lot of money because we don't charge volumetrically by by event or API or host either. So I mean, there's that savings as well. So sorry, just had to throw that a little business reason.
Yeah, yeah.
Gil doesn't normally deal with that, so I had to throw that in there.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I got, Tom, when you look at it, right, what are some other lessons from the journey here from our customers and our evolution?
Yeah, I think there's one that was kind of interesting to me, and then there's one that I think is interesting to everybody. So I don't know if this one is going to the one that's interesting to me will be interesting to Gil, but but I think the ability of to set your defense profile uh, however you want on the client or in the network or per API. That granular level control for a cyber team is huge. So, so for example, earlier I mentioned that most anti-bot SDKs look for jailbreak and root, and they think of jailbreak and root as an indication of a bot attack. It's not an indication of a bot attack. Jailbreak and root is a data exploit. It's not a bot exploit. So, if it were me, I would say enforce jailbreak and root on the client and just let the client handle that. And I don't need to have that in my WAF. But there are other things that you can look for that really kind of signal, a bot level attack, virtualization, Android debug bridge, or that present specific risk to an API like overlays or deepfakes or keyloggers or things like that, fake locations, things like that. So I think this ability to kind of mix and match where you enforce, like put some enforcement down on the client, bring some up to the network, and then tailor the bot defense profile per API. I think customers really, really like that flexibility and really like that control. The one that was surprising to me, though, and I didn't think about it before, is that, and there's pros and cons to it, is Appdome has a capability on the client side called threat events, which allows Appdome to pass data to the application and the developer to control the user experience when they get that data from us. So if we detect a particular attack, say a phishing attack or remote desktop control or banking Trojan or whatever, we pass that information to the application, and the application takes the action and changes the UI. Up until recently, I didn't realize, and this is just, I hadn't thought about it, is that the same level of user experience control can happen with a network response from the back end. So the WAF can basically respond to the application 403, unauthorized access or what have you, And the developer could take the 403 and do whatever they want to with it. They can create their own UI, they can create their own workflow. Now, there's pros and cons to that, right? Because in the client side, using threat events, you get more data, but you can still, it's not true that you're just going to have an error message to the user, that you can actually control the user experience. So this ability to move enforcement down to the client and bring it up to the network and use a 403 to generate a different user experience. That one was I was like blown away by that. I was like, oh yeah, I don't know why I didn't think about that, but that is really, really cool. So
I would add to that I think Appdomes, we have the ability to have multiple profiles from multiple domains within the same app. So like in most SDK solutions that I looked at, they were like single domains. It's you're enforcing on that domain for that WAF, that's it. On Appdome, if you have like a large application and you're doing multiple domains or multiple URLs and you want a different configuration for that one and different configuration to that one, then Appdome, you can just mix and match and basically have the right configuration. You don't have to say, that's all I got. Like Appdome is a big choice platform, and we tailored for all needs, like out of our architecture. That's just how we build stuff.
Yeah, and I think just in terms of comprehensive coverage and all the threat vectors that we cover, there's no one that even comes close to that. And doing so on an API by API, URL by URL, host by host basis, as Gil points out, is just I mean, I just think network security guys are gonna love it. The other thing I'd say, which I think both Gil and I would agree to, is the ability to deploy defenses on demand. So if you have things set up in a bot defense profile, you're in control of whether you're enforcing or not enforcing things. So, you don't have to deploy a version of the app. If you need to turn on something, you're under attack, you can respond very quickly in your bot defense profile without releasing a new version of the application. So that rapid response is also there as well. So it's a very exciting time for us because we get to see how brands are taking a 360-degree view of their defense profile. So it's very interesting, very exciting right now.
And I mean, I just want to say that I like working with customers because every time you come into a new customer, every time you come into a new network, you're like you see a new world, you see exactly what they need, you see exactly where they're at, exactly where they're struggling, exactly where you can help them. And it's just fun being on the calls with customers and seeing where we can do to help,
Yep.
So it's been a great conversation here. I'd like to bottom line it, right? So we've talked a lot about the bot challenge and the advanced technology that Appdome's bringing to the market with Appdome Mobile Bot Defense. What's the one big reason? What's the bottom line number one reason that someone needs this? Gil, you want to start?
I would say it comes down to you have to have AI to fight AI. Like that's where we're at. We're at a place where all attacks are being AI generated. It's super easy you don't need to be a big genius to write a script that can blow up a server and blow up a backend and can infiltrate and use attacks. So it's just too hard to build it on your own without using AI on the defense side. I think that's where it comes down to.
Yeah, I'd second that. I think AI has changed the game in bot attacks and bot defense. It's also changed the game in account takeovers. I think these days, we're going to see over time that the need to use a brute force attack to break into somebody's account is going to go away. AI is going to get super smarter and much better at guessing and account takeovers, and you're not going to have to do brute force attacks to do account takeovers. It's going to be things like deepfakes. It's going to be things like spyware. It's going to be things like, fake users and fake devices and things of that nature. So we have to shift the paradigm of bot defense to have deeper inspection of the connection and session risk before we allow connections to critical API endpoints. It can't be just look for a brute force attack, and if there's no brute force attack, let it in, because those days are gone. AI has changed the game.
Yeah, for sure.
You have to look at much more sophisticated class attacks in order to keep your backend safe.
Okay, I'm going to cut in. So Chris sent me an interesting note. He's watching as a webinar attendee in the background. He said, we're entirely agreeing too much. So let's pick something for you guys to disagree on, and then I'll edit this in as a topic. Thoughts on a leading question for you guys to go this way instead?
Uh, I mean, Gil doesn't believe in zombie apps, so that's the one area we know we disagree on.
Yeah, we can talk about the rate limiting and say like, I mean, what we said before.
Yeah, do you really think that, Tom, you mentioned rate limiting, on the client side. Is that something
That matters.
that really matters?
And you
Uh,
guys could argue over that a little bit.
yeah, we already argued over it. Yeah.
Let's argue it over it again.
Yeah, I can give my answer, then Gil can say,
Yeah,
or
do
Yeah.
it in a disagreeable way, more disagreeable way. So,
yeah,
all right,
yeah.
you guys ready? I'm gonna go cue in the question here.
Yep.
So Tom, you mentioned rate limiting. Is rate limiting really that big a deal on the client side?
Well, rate limiting has been done quite a bit on the network side. All WAFs have rate limiting in them. The problem with doing it on the back end is that you end up taking down your network because the rate limit gets hit and you stop accepting requests and stop accepting all requests. So what we did is we brought rate limiting out to the client. And the reason for that is to stop zombie and weaponized applications from making too many requests to the back end. So we shift the compute out to the client side and basically use the compute of the device to basically keep the mobile client in bounds with the number of requests.
Yeah, I mean, my take of it is a little different because, like, if you're looking at the adversary side or the attacker side, then most chances he's not going to be weaponizing the app. He's going to be writing scripts, and then whatever you do, rate limiting on the app, that's not going to matter. You're still going to get hit from the mobile bots, from the bots, like you're going to get hit on your backend. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it really depends on it. So, I don't know. I mean, for some things, I think in the end, if somebody really wants to make you pay on the back end, rate limiting on the client, it's not only that, you know.
Yeah, though we did see if I don't want to, we can't say names, of course, but we did see bot attacks, which we helped to resolve where and maybe it was an instance of what you were talking about earlier, which is taking an SDK out of the legitimate app and putting it into a target app so that the bot defense solution from the WAF vendor actually saw it as a legitimate app because it had the SDK. So maybe the attacker did that. But in a world in which, but we did see an attack where the attack was coming from a legitimate app. So we have seen that instance, and it can be from what Gil's talking about, which is, just pulling the antibot SDK out and putting it in another app, which obviously you can't do with Appdome.
Yeah.
But it could also be somebody weaponizing the app, loading the app into an automated environment and just, using Appium scripts to run login requests with different username and password pairs. I don't know. I mean, it could be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in that sense, it's like it's a defense in depth because I'm assuming that since I am the person who has written the Appdome code and knows what it's like, I'm like, nobody's going to weaponize the Appdome application. So from my point of view as like the developer, I'm thinking like, hey, this is tamper proof. So like but it is, I mean, I guess you're right. It's always good to have an extra layer of defense, even if you don't plan to be using it on most cases.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, it's the same way. I mean, we have pin to host as well in our bot defense solution as well. So we have that, certificate pinning. So the app connects to a specific host for each API and so forth. So we have that as well. So these extra layers, it's always about layered defense. I agree with Gil on that. Always about layered defense and having a defense in depth for bot defense or client defense is a critical way of moving forward.
So it's been a great session here with Tom and Gil, kind of a fun debate with a twist on role exchange for the two of them. The message is clear, right? Bot attacks are real and growing exponentially, and traditional solutions don't meet the cut. And Appdome is ultimately the best defense. Mobile bot attacks are evolving fast. Take a look at Appdome. We encourage you to sign up for a demo today, and we're here to help you. Thanks for your time.